All right, good morning. We're going to get started this morning with an invocation led by Pastor Gary Jones Jr. of Eastside Church of Christ, and that'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Ashlyn and Paisley Bryson, representing Girl Scouts Troop 7110. Please stand as you are able.
Shall we pray? Our Father and our God in heaven, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you for an opportunity to come to you in prayer. We come this morning asking a special blessing upon our community, upon our city, upon the decisions that will be made that will impact us all. We ask a special blessing on this morning upon the children of our community, the challenges that they face. May the decisions that we make be reflective of our future and our children. We ask that you be with our seniors, those that are still pillars of our community, those who have invested so much into us, into our city, that you would be with them and bless them as well. Lord, we ask that you would watch over the vulnerable and the afraid among us. We don't know what tomorrow brings, but we're certain that it's you who holds tomorrow. Lord, we ask that you would continue to protect and guide those who keep us safe, be with those that are making decisions for us. In a time where everyone is looking to do what is beneficial, Lord, may we always do what's right. We ask very simply, Lord, that as you be with us today, that you help us to be better people tomorrow than we were on yesterday. It's in Jesus' name we pray and ask it all. Amen.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you, Pastor Jones, and thank you, Ashlyn and Paisley. I call this meeting of the City Council to order, and we will start with Office of the Mayor. We have some resolutions of commendation to present, and I will make my way to the front. All right, how about we start with Kenneth? Come on down. All right, well, Kenneth or Ken? Ken. Ken, all right, Ken. Well, you are our Employee of the Month, and we'd like to learn a little bit more about you, and so I would ask the clerk to read this resolution.
Whereas Kenneth Myrick has served as a city employee for 5 years and is a unit operations supervisor in the Public Works Department. And whereas Kenneth began his city career as a meter reader in the Utilities Department, then transferred to the Traffic Operations Division of the Public Works, where he eventually promoted to crew chief over the sign installation section and now leads the city's traffic operations section as a unit operations supervisor. And whereas Kenneth led the refurbishment of a long line paint truck, which went unused for 4 years, restoring it to full functionality. And whereas Kenneth's innovation and leadership are evident not only in his daily responsibilities, but in his contributions as a member of the Public Works Department's innovation team, where he rethinks processes and implements strategies to benefit his teams and the community. And whereas Kenneth's dedication to improving traffic operations and his commitment to fostering innovation exemplify the highest standards of public service. And whereas Kenneth demonstrates exemplary leadership and problem-solving skills. And whereas this council wishes to recognize Kenneth Myrick for his dedication to improving the city's infrastructure and operations and his outstanding contributions to the city of Oklahoma City and its residents. Now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and council of the city of Oklahoma City that they do hereby thank and commend Kenneth Myrick, January 2025, South Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club Employee of the Month.
Well, thank you. Well, Ken, a few years ago, this council asked the city manager to create a Chief Innovation Officer for the city. And that only works, if we've got innovative people all the way through the organization who are rethinking the way we do things. And thank you for being one of those people that are helping to ensure that our city services stay on the cutting edge. And thank you for being such a great example of the finest city employees in the country. This is a resolution. Let me quickly pass this real quick, and then we'd love to hear a few words from you. But first, can we get a motion and a second? All right, cast your votes. I wish to vote aye. Passes unanimously. Well, Ken, we'd love to hear a few thoughts. The floor is yours.
First of all, I'd like to thank the council, the Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank my family too. When I decided 5 years ago to come to work for the city, I made a late in life career change, and it's been a blessing all the way around for me. I get to work with wonderful supervisors, good co-workers. I've got a crew who works for me that will do anything that needs to be done. This is the epitome of, you hear the saying, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Working for the city has truly been like that for me. I've been here 5 years, it has flown by. I mean, every day it's a new adventure. I mean, I look forward to coming to work every day. I mean, the city has been a true blessing for me. I'd like to thank everyone for this honor.
Yeah, well, thank you. Let's hear it for Ken. Thank you so much. All right, Captain Chenoweth, come on down. All right, well, the captain is our firefighter, not just of the month, but of the entire year of 2024, I guess, right? Yes, so we would love to hear a little bit more about you, Captain, so I'll ask the clerk to read this resolution.
Whereas John Chenoweth has been a city employee for 14 years and is a captain in the Oklahoma City Fire Department. And whereas Captain Chenoweth has taken on additional duties, including that of Assistant Public Information Officer, and plays an integral role in public relations and marketing for the department, managing media relations, overseeing social media and website administration, coordinating emergency response and crisis communications, and facilitating special projects. And whereas Captain Chenoweth has demonstrated outstanding leadership, professionalism, and unwavering dedication to the fire department and the Oklahoma City community. And whereas Captain Chenoweth serves as the face of the Oklahoma City Fire Department, representing the department with professionalism and integrity while contributing significantly to the success of the department's social media platforms. And whereas during emergencies, Captain Chenoweth's ability to communicate effectively with the public and media has been invaluable, providing accurate and timely information that manages public expectations, enhances departmental transparency, and builds trust within the community. And whereas Captain Chenoweth's dedication to showcasing the exceptional work of department personnel demonstrates his deep respect for his colleagues and passion for public service. And whereas this council wishes to recognize Captain Chenoweth for his remarkable contributions to the Oklahoma City Fire Department and the residents of Oklahoma City. Now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and council of the city of Oklahoma City that they do hereby thank and commend Captain John Chenoweth, the 2024 South Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club Firefighter of the Year, for his exemplary leadership, dedication, and service.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Captain Chenoweth, for your career here at the city and being such a great representative of our outstanding fire department. We would like to pass this first, and then we'd love to hear a few words from you. So let's see if we can get a motion in a second. We got it. I wish to vote aye. All right, passes unanimously. Well, the floor is yours, Captain.
I just want to thank you, Mayor, and the City Council. Like I said, it's 17 years on the job. It's an amazing career. I just
17, we need to correct the resolution.
It's okay. So 17 years on the job. It's just I just love working for this fire department. I love serving the community and helping the residents. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Let's hear it for Captain Chen. All right, did Sergeant Reyes arrive. Here he is. Come on down. We were not able to connect before the meeting. We were a little worried you might not come, but you look like you are on duty right now. So thank you for making time for this. Well, we would like to learn a little bit more about you, and so I would ask the clerk to read this resolution.
Whereas William Reyes has been a city employee for 8 years and is a sergeant in the Oklahoma City Police Department. And whereas Sergeant Reyes responded to Exchange Boulevard and South Pennsylvania Avenue on November 10th to check the welfare of a man reported to be laying on the railing of the Exchange Avenue Bridge. And whereas upon arriving at the scene, Sergeant Reyes observed the man lying on his back on the railing inches from the edge of the bridge, appearing to be asleep. And whereas Sergeant Reyes acted swiftly and decisively as the man raised his leg and began rolling over, causing him to fall off the bridge toward a 40-foot drop into the shallow Canadian River below. And whereas Sergeant Reyes grabbed the man mid-fall, holding him by only his sweatshirt and arm as the man dangled over the edge of the bridge. And whereas, with the assistance of 2 passing residents, Sergeant Reyes successfully pulled the man back onto the bridge, preventing him from suffering serious harm or death. And whereas Sergeant Reyes demonstrated extraordinary courage and selflessness during this incident, acting without concern for his own safety and placing himself in great peril to protect the life of another. And whereas the heroism displayed by Sergeant Reyes exemplifies the highest standards of law enforcement and the commitment to the safeguarding life which lies at the heart of police service. And whereas this council wishes to commend Sergeant Reyes for his exceptional bravery, professionalism, and dedication to the residents of the city of Oklahoma City. Now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and council of the city of Oklahoma City that they do hereby thank and commend Sergeant William Reyes, the 2024 South Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club Police Officer of the Year, for his heroic actions and steadfast commitment to public safety.
Well, thank you, and that is a heck of a story, the kind of thing we think only happens in movies, but it happened in real life for you, and one of our residents is alive today thanks to you, and I'm sure that that's just an example of the kind of work that our officers do every day. So thank you so very much for being a great example of that. This is a resolution as well, so let's see if we can get a motion in a second to adopt it. And I would point out you are this is to be the police officer of the year, not of the month. This is also the year 2024. We've got a motion in a second. Cast your votes. I wish to vote aye. Passes unanimously. Well, Sergeant Reyes, we'd love to hear a few words from you. I usually get a chance before the meeting to warn you about that, but I'm sure you can handle it. The floor is yours.
I want to thank City Council, Mayor, for this, and the department. It's been a great time working here. I really don't have much to say. Kind of spur of the moment, got a phone call from Major about 10 minutes ago, roughly, saying I need to be down here.
You know, this has been on the agenda since Friday. Like, you were the last to know. I'm sorry to hear
I thought
that.
it was a spam email, honestly. But got Chaplain riding with me today. It's my Monday back at work. And I asked Chaplain, I was like, I've never been to City Council. Where is it? But thank you for this.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Sergeant. Let's hear it for Sergeant Reyes. That's yours.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Christy, come on down. Christy is our Teacher of the Month, and let's learn a little bit more about your service in Putnam City Schools, and I'd ask the clerk to read this resolution.
Whereas Christy Gossett has been named Teacher of the Month for January 2025 by Putnam City Public Schools and Rotary Club of Oklahoma City. And whereas Christy received her Bachelor's of Vocal Music Performance degree, Vocal Music Teacher Certification, and Master's of Music Education degree from the University of Central Oklahoma. And whereas Christy has taught for 24 years, beginning in 1998 in Pawnee Public Schools, she returned home to Putnam City Schools, teaching at Western Oaks Elementary in 2007, and since 2020 has served as the choral director at Mayfield Middle School. And whereas Christy has contributed significantly to education beyond the classroom by mentoring over a dozen student teachers and providing professional development for teachers across the district and state, thereby shaping the future of education. And whereas Christy has demonstrated exceptional leadership through her role as Putnam City Secondary Vocal Music Chair, member of the Putnam City Association of Classroom Teachers Executive Board, and tirelessly advocating for educators and students, while contributing to district-wide initiatives, curriculum development, and professional growth. And whereas Christy is the founder of the Kind Club at Mayfield Middle School, which fosters inclusivity, combats bullying, and creates a welcoming environment for all students. And whereas Christy's achievements include directing impactful performances that showcase student talent, inspire community engagement, and create memorable experiences for all. And whereas Christy is a lifetime member of Sigma Alpha Iota, an international music fraternity that promises to encourage, nurture, and support the art of music. And whereas Christy believes that teaching is a profound responsibility and a calling from God, striving to make her classroom a space of joy, creativity, and connection where students feel valued, supported, and capable of success. And whereas Christy spends her free time with her supportive family, husband Charles, and daughter Amy, and her daughter Danielle, and her fiance Trevor. Now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and council of the city of Oklahoma City that they do hereby recognize and commend Christy Gossett on her selection as the January 2025 Teacher of the Month by Putnam City Public Schools and Rotary Club of Oklahoma City.
Well, thank you. And we also discovered before the meeting that we were at Wiley Post Elementary for a few years in common, and that was when we both enjoyed the remarkable and iconic teaching of music teacher Kathleen Reynolds, who we just lost, unfortunately, in the last few months, but Putnam City's only statewide teacher of the year and really kind of a legend in music education and an inspiration for you. So very cool. Well, Christy, this is a resolution as well, so let's see if we can get the votes for you. We've got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. I wish to vote aye. Passes unanimously. Well, Christy, we'd love to hear a few thoughts from you. And as a teacher, I know you've always got something to say, right? You've always got some material you can work with. So the floor is yours, Christy.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you, Mayor Holt and City Council for this recognition, and to be recognized with so many other fabulous people is an honor. I'm a teacher, and I love being a teacher. I love connecting with students and making a difference in their lives. Even in a tumultuous time, I know that every day when I go to school, I get to step into my classroom and be with amazing people and make a difference. And I thank you for the recognition.
Excellent. Let's hear it for Christy. Thank you. Yours to keep. Okay, we have a couple more things on Office of the Mayor. We have appointments to Oklahoma City Redevelopment Authority, Urban Renewal Authority, and the Traffic Commission. These are items E, F, G, and we could take them with one motion. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. All right, now we're at item 4, items from council. We have item A, resolution waiving fees assessed in accordance with Chapter 60 of our municipal code for applications to the Board of Adjustment and Planning Commission for victims of the November 3rd, 2024 tornado. Councilman Stone, the floor is yours to explain your resolution.
Thank you, Mayor. As y'all recall, on November 3rd, we had a couple of tornadoes come down in Ward 4. They weren't huge tornadoes, but where they impacted, there was some pretty large damage there. Unfortunately, some of these spots were on properties that were originally annexed into Oklahoma City, and they don't meet our current building code. But as we all know, they need to be able to rebuild there. They need to be able to rebuild, what was existing there. So what this resolution does basically is it waives any fees associated with going in front of the Planning Commission or the Board of Adjustment, so they can get done what they need to get the rebuilding done. So with that, unless anyone has any questions or comments, I'll move for its approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, item 5, city manager reports. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, we have the sales and use tax report on this morning, and the report, you'll see that we have seen an improvement in the sales tax. It's still down below last year, so we're now at about 1% below last year for the year. Part of this is we saw lower revenues, like in, I think it was in November that we saw that. November, maybe into December, were affected by the change in the grocery tax. We saw some corrections come through in January, or actually in December, and then in January now. And part of this is affected by those corrections. We also had a correction from a large vendor that was actually, it was determined their taxes were being remitted properly, but then they were being designated to the wrong city. And so we have a lot of bordering cities, and so we got that corrected. It's pretty significant. So that has an impact on this. Obviously, that's not an economic change. It's something that was going on for a long period of time. It's just a correction that lowered our revenues from the past. All in all, we end up about 1% below target for the year on sales tax, about 1.7% above target for use tax. Together, they're still above last year. So it's 1% below last year for sales tax, 1.7 above last year for use tax, but they're still below target. Both of them are below target. Combined, we're still $8 million below target, what our expectations were for this year for the budget. We're still managing the budget well. We talked about it. We put a hiring freeze in place several weeks back to help create some savings in this current year, but also to prepare us going into next year's budget. And so we've got those actions taking place. We're still monitoring, but we're in a good position this year, especially with the number of vacancies that we have, to be able to make it through this year well. We're going to monitor very closely as we go into next year's budget, and we're starting our work. We have our budget workshop in the next couple of weeks. We'll have more discussion about this then. But still overall, all in all, a better outlook on sales tax right now. I think it was in November that we were down 3% below last year. We've now corrected a little bit. We're about 1% below last year. So we'll continue to monitor, keep you updated, let you know where we are on that. The only other thing we have, Mayor, is claims and payroll, and that can be found on okc.gov.
All right, thank you. Item 6, A and B, we have Journal of Council proceedings. We could take those with one motion. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 7, request for uncontested continuances. Item 9AH is already listed on the agenda as an item to be struck. Mr. City Manager, is there anything else?
Yes, beginning on page 12, item 11L1, unsecured structures. All of these items will be stricken from the agenda, starting with item B, 4312 South Lee Avenue. The owner has secured. Item D, 1017 Northwest 10th to re-notify for new openings. Item E, 2442 Northwest 14th Street. The owner has secured. Item F, 2501 Northwest 14th Street. The owner has secured. Item H, 1700 Northwest 19th Street. The owner has secured. Item J, 1601 Northwest 41st Street. The owner has secured. And item L, 405 Southeast 50th Street. The owner has secured. Continuing on page 12, item 11M1, abandoned buildings. All of these items are stricken from the agenda. They were also on unsecured, and they'll be stricken for the same reasons as they were on unsecured. Item E, 1017 Northwest 10th Street. Item G, 2442 Northwest 14th Street. Item I, 1700 Northwest 19th Street. And item K, 1601 Northwest 41st Street. And that's all the items that I have.
All right. Then we are at item 8. 8A is a revocable permit with, joint revocable permit with the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust and Red Coyote Running and Fitness to hold the Red Coyote Puppy Love 5K at Lake Hefner on February 16th. And we have John Osland here.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The Puppy Love 5K is to be the third year for our event. It kicks off our Red Coyote racing season of 9 events this year. Benefits of 405 Animal Rescue. We've done it at Stars and Stripes Park for the last 3 years, and looking forward for another great run.
Great, thank you. This impacts wards 1, 2, and 8, so anybody can jump in.
We got this. We came to a conclusion, we counseled, and we'd like to move for approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.
You too. We'll recess the council meeting and convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority. We have items A through C we could take with one motion. Executive session is not requested by staff for B2. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. We'll adjourn OCMFA and convene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority, where we have items A and B we could take with one motion. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. We'll adjourn OCPPA and reconvene as the council, where we are on page 3, item 9, the consent docket. And we have
We don't
nothing.
have any presentations.
No
Right.
presentations, but is there any other item that a council member wishes to pull out for question, comment, separate vote?
Yes, Mayor, just a separate vote on item B, please.
Item B is in boy? Okay. All right, if that is it, we'll start there. Let's see if we can get a motion for just item 9B. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes 7-1. Now we're on the remainder of the consent docket, which we could take with one motion. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Now we're at item 10, the concurrence docket. We have items A through P we can take with one motion. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Now we're at item 11, items for individual consideration. Item 11A has a couple parts. There's an amendment to the master design statement, and then there's the ordinance on final hearing that was recommended for approval, rezoning 5900 Wildwood from PUD 1842 to PUD 2016. This has been deferred several times, starting in November, and we have four people who have signed up to speak. Councilman Lee Cooper.
Good morning, Mark Zidzow with Johnson & Associates. Address is 1 East Sheridan Avenue. I'm not going to walk back through the entire case. You've heard it. The facts haven't changed. We're asking for a nominal increase in density in exchange for a significant amount of concessions and further restrictions on the property that do not exist today. And that's what's being passed out as a comparison between the current zoning and the proposed zoning. Since our last deferral, we have had another neighborhood meeting and amended the document once again for some additional items that were requested through the neighborhood meeting. I'm going to read those because I think they're fairly impactful. The first one, minimum single-family lot size shall be increased to 8,500 square feet. Minimum open space for Tract 2 increased from 15% to 25%. Second floor walkout patios and balconies facing north shall not be permitted within 150 feet of the northern property line or adjacent to Northeast 59th Street. Trees planted on 20-foot centers along the northern property line. Brick columns are required on the fencing. The developer will encourage the purchasers of lots to join the Wildwood Heights Neighborhood Association, but also include language in the CC&Rs. Developer shall adhere to all applicable local and state regulations in regard to erosion control requirements to prevent further unnecessary runoff of dirt and dust outside of the construction area. If runoff occurs, the developer shall be required to clean all appropriate areas. With that, the facts remain the same. I'm happy to answer any questions. We have made a considerable number of concessions, and on that list, it highlights all of them, setbacks, height, all in exchange for 62 units, 40 of which are single-family homes. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but we would ask for your approval today.
Council, any questions? Thank you, Mark. Citizens to be heard.
Okay, we've got Lisa Long. And I'd ask everyone to state your name, address, and keep your remarks to 3 minutes or less.
Can you repeat that, please? I'm sorry.
So I was just saying, state your name, address, and keep your remarks to 3 minutes or less, and there'll be a
Yes, sir.
clock up above.
Yes, sir. Good morning. My name is Arlisa Long. I live at 315 Northeast 59th Street. I have resided in my residence, it'll be 30 years in August. While I understand that, developers have to make money, I can appreciate that. My only issue is that in the wording, and of course I'm not highly educated on PUD and how those things are supposed to be written, but I do have a master's degree so I can read and process information. So it appears to me that there are some specific wording within the PUDs. PUD, I think 2016 and the previous PUD that we have in place. And it is just troubling to me that some of the wording is not as specific in PUD 2016. One thing in particular is the density. Describing it as 554 units or 45 units doesn't really explicitly say that there's a cap on, let's say, the previous PUD having 12 units per acre and the PUD 2016 saying 18 per acre. I think we have to be specific and detailed when developers want to proceed forward and change the landscape. I don't really have a whole lot to say, but if there are issues in the wording, that's a concern for me. If there are differences between the previous PUD that's existing right now and then the one that we're proposed to vote on today, it seems like there should be a time where we look back at it and add the specific wording. Otherwise, a developer can just do whatever they choose to do whenever that time comes. That's the issue that I have.
Thank you. Reverend David Dawson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning to this Council of Civic Leaders, and thank you for the opportunity to address you today. Oklahoma City is in an era of growth and development which challenges our city with the demand for housing. The Wildwood Hills Heights Neighborhood Association does not oppose nor do we resist the development of multifamily housing in our sector of living. We do believe, however, that it is our charge to have input into the construction process and to express to this council our concerns. We are concerned at the disruption to the character of our community as it relates to harmony, identity, and the environment we now enjoy. We are concerned at the strain of our current infrastructure and the degradation that will follow when an increase in population will wear on our streets, sewer systems, utilities, and other such services. We are concerned that more people means more traffic, more congestion, especially on Braniff and Wildwood Drive. Vehicles parked on the neighborhood streets will slow down police, fire, ambulance, and other public services response time. We are concerned that with a decrease in the green areas and fewer trees, will result in poor air quality and impact local wildlife in a negative manner. Statistically speaking, the greater the increase in population, the greater the potential for change in social dynamics and security. We are very concerned that an increase in population will lead to overcrowding in our already limited park and recreational space. In conclusion, the urban growth and development is inevitable and necessary, but should be done with foresight and respectfulness of the residents. Growth in housing should not come at the cost of our community's well-being and the voices of the residents who call this neighborhood home. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vicki Hooks.
Good morning. My name is Vicki Hooks. I live at 323 Northeast 59th Street. And if this project is allowed to happen, it will introduce more than 1,200 plus people to our neighborhood. And with 545 apartments being built, the inflow of people will be in our neighborhood, and our neighborhood just can't handle that amount of people. The commute from the neighborhood, from the apartments will also cut through our neighborhood street, which is Braniff. And when you can't avoid that because most people are going to take the shorter route. Leading is also going to have cars going through our neighborhood at peak time, which at peak time, that means parking, walking, playing outside is going to have a safety issue. Drivers will seek the fastest route, which will be through the neighborhood, which is provided Santa Fe, but also Braniff is right next to it. So with Braniff being next to it, and they're going to take the shorter route to 63rd. The impact to our neighborhood, the residents will have problems navigating and potential safety concerns, which will be frustrating with noise and interruptions. I also have gone to the resident survey that the finding report. And when I found that, it was one of the third top concerns was the traffic, which was the congestion, increase of traffic on local streets and large community events. That will impact our neighborhood tremendously. So just being honest, I just don't think this PUD is really gonna be neighborhood friendly. Neighborhood friendly is something that I think that they should consider for us to do, for us to have. It's not fair that you come into a neighborhood that is just okay with the low density and the low, with the low people in it, and they just, just shake us up. It's gonna shake our
30
neighborhood
seconds
up
remaining.
tremendously. So that's all I have to say.
All right,
Thank you.
you. Rhea Thornton.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rhea Thornton. I reside at 6208 North Canyon Drive, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73105. I would like to first thank you for your time and listening to me and hearing me out. I have been at that home for 44 years. I was born and raised in that home. I moved away about 16 years ago into a neighborhood where the apartment complex was built in the middle, and I moved out of that place due to the crime, the areas, brand new apartment, lush apartments, all of that were built, and it is just not a good environment. I recently lost my mother, who was over and in the neighborhood association for this, and I was the secretary for her, helped her do her work. They have been fighting this fight for as long as I can remember. Gentlemen and lady, would you please consider The people that have been in this area, like me, who own their home in full, been there 44 years, others, elderly women, single, all of these things are a consideration, and it is very vital to our survival. I do not want to see this neighborhood barricaded with destruction, people walking around. It is a safe neighborhood. It is the only safety. I lost my son to this same type of crime and the same type of auction. So I understand the need to have money. I understand the need to develop. I understand those things, but can we please get it away from Wildwood? I just want that consideration made. And if anything, if at all we have to go with this, there's gotta be a lot of safeguards put into it. I've lived it. I've seen it. I'm not a stranger to it. Over off 101st and Western, apartments built in the middle of the neighborhood, nothing but crime, ridicule in that area. I'm okay with the homes coming in. That's perfectly fine. I have a brand new home that was built in that area, and it's still overrun by crime. Ladies and gentlemen, please consider not going along with this PUD 2016. Please, I beg of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Annette Burke. Annette?
Good morning, Council, Mr. Mayor, our councilman. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come before you this morning. Thank you for listening to some of the concerns of our neighbors. Certainly, it's not all of the concerns. What I want to do is just try to put this in a capsule for you. From the beginning of this process, our neighborhood was put in an adversarial position in that there was only a few days before the proposed PUD of 2016 was to go before the Planning Commission before we had our very first meeting. Again, that's exclusion, not inclusion. Our councilman at the time, I'm sure, did all that she could, because we heard over and over again that you'll either take this or something else is coming that may be worse. That embeds a body of fear, not a body of inclusiveness, not a body of cooperation, no consideration for the fact that the average neighbor in our community has been there 40+ years. Folks, a generation is 20 to 25. This is how long and how much effort has been put into building the character of this community. All of this is at risk right now. And we're asking you as our council, as our representatives, to consider what this is doing or would do to our community. We have 520 homes in Wildwood Hills and Heights. Excuse me, 420. The proposal of 545 apartments in just one tract. With the possibility, because there's no specific density number indicated here, and it says over and over in this document, whatever rules are in place at the time, whatever latitude is provided at the time, that means that this, at the time, looking at our low density as dictated by the city of Oklahoma City, the number can raise as high as 900. And such misinformation has been given throughout our neighborhood that our last newsletter that was distributed says that the number could be as high as 1,051. So how can we be expected to sit down in a positive way and look at this development as something good for our community? I don't know how that would be possible. But one of the statements that's made that I thought was quite interesting.
We're over time. Do you have a conclusion?
Sir?
We're past your 3 minutes. Do you have?
I just have one statement.
Okay.
I'm going to.
All right.
Thank
All right,
you,
real
Mayor. You even got my name right today. Thank you. It says that the developer means to complement the surrounding areas with this development. There's no complements. There's not any complements. Exclusion doesn't include complements, and each one of you know that. So we're asking today, again, we're not saying that they should not develop this land. We're asking that we have an opportunity to go back to the table and pull forth something that will work for our neighborhood as well as the developer. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Christian Smith?
Did you ask me something?
No, Christian
okay.
Smith.
Good morning, City Council. My name is Christian Smith. I reside at 326 Northeast 59th Street in Oklahoma City. I'm here this morning to just kind of voice some of my concerns in regards to the planning that's supposed to be taking place. And I want to first say that I'm not against apartments. I resided in apartments before I purchased my home as a single mother back in 2011. So I'm definitely not against apartments or people who live in apartments. I had to stay in an apartment myself, save up money, put down a down payment to move in my home that I purchased from the first owner who had a daughter at the time, and she since has passed away. But I know she was a part of the original neighbors who had hired a lawyer to, make sure that when the developers were coming in the community that it was going to, be something positive. And since then, a lot of things have changed as far as the planning. And I'm really just concerned with exactly what's gonna be done. I've read over the paperwork with my neighbors several times. And what concerns me is how vague it is. Like we stated, we're not against the development of that area. But me and my house being literally right in front of where the apartments are going to be, because my house in the backyard basically is just the field, so the apartments are going to be directly behind my house. But it seems that in the plan there's poor planning, and I have no doubt that it will negatively affect our neighborhood, our wildlife, and also our roads, which will cause congestion in the neighborhood. That wasn't designed to accommodate this type of traffic. And the plan doesn't address all of our concerns. I believe this is a safety hazard for our current residents who are elderly, as well as our future ones. And the developer did mention that they're giving us a number of concessions, but they have also taken away a number of things from us that we have fought very hard to keep. So with that being said, I really don't believe that's going to be something that we will benefit from. I see us losing a lot of things, and I don't see that they're collabing and working with us like you should when you do move into a neighborhood, just like I did 13 years ago. And even though we aren't developers, we have invested in our neighborhood over the years to make it a home for everyone that lives there. And so I'm asking that you all vote against the PUD 16 today. Hopefully, you will take in consideration our concerns, and maybe we can go back to the drawing board so that we all can make sure that whatever planning is going to take place will be a positive one. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councilman Cooper, that concludes this residents who signed up to speak.
Okay, just want to, Mark, go ahead.
I was just going to address a couple of the items. The first one being traffic. We've committed to traffic calming devices on streets that the neighbors choose when we get to that point. We'll work with them and place them. When you look at the flow of the area, though, Santa Fe, well, drivers are always going to choose the quickest path. Santa Fe has a light, so if you're trying to get to the highway or you're going west, Santa Fe has the light. which would be the most logical spot to exit. From the current PUD to the proposed PUD, we've increased the open space 10 additional %. And then multiple folks commented on the vagueness of the density. The density in the initial PUD was 12 units per acre. In this PUD, we were extremely specific because of how much confusion there was over how that number was calculated. So in this one, under Section 9, under Track 2, it is density, the maximum density within Track 2 shall be 545 units. So where the 1,000 number came from, the 900 number, I am unsure. What we are allowed, if this is approved, for Track 2 of multifamily is 545 units. That is in the PUD. So I'm happy to answer any other questions you have, but we would ask for your approval today.
Any questions from council?
Just real quickly, so I just want to be clear that all of the multifamily stuff, the traffic from it goes south, correct?
That is correct.
It doesn't go through the neighborhood and all that?
No, only Tract 1, which is single family,
right,
would have access to the neighborhood.
And how many lots will be in Tract 1?
I believe it's 43 when you take into account both pieces of Tract 1.
Okay, thank you.
Just a couple of questions real quick. Under the existing PUD 1842, you can build 522 multifamily units under that existing PUD, correct?
That's correct.
And will the entrance and ingress and egress all be to the south with under PUD 1842?
Yes, both PUDs only allow access to the south.
And then under PUD 1842, the minimum lot size is only 6,000 square feet, and you have conceded in the new PUD to 8,500 square feet on the minimum lot size, correct?
That's correct.
And you've made architectural concessions, landscaping concessions, access concessions, signage concessions, hours of work concessions, and you're going to install speed humps. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Would you mind briefly going back through this slide? Like there were some photos. I just wanted to see those of just the land. Like, yes, no, I'm sorry, slower. Yes. Keep going, thank you. Uh-huh, and then, yes, okay. So, and then would you go to the actual, the rendering of what you're wanting to do? Okay. So first, thank you to Councilor Cooper. I think it was New Year's Day. I mean, like right around the holidays, we actually went out to this land. And if you look here where it says I-44 Service Road, in between the Track 2 proposal and that service road, we stood. And we actually literally walked we met there right there on Wildwood Drive and 59th Street, walked through the land, on the land rather, to that spot. I guess for me, the too long didn't read of this is, and normally when whatever direction a council person is going when it comes to zoning proposals, we're with them. And I want to applaud Councilor Cooper for the negotiations, the literally being out there, going out there to look at the proposal itself during a holiday, I think is commendable. Personally, there is no development. I have come to the conclusion that I would support here. No development. I understand someone has purchased this land. I do understand that. When you go out there and you see the trees, coniferous, etc., it's like going on a walk through the area surrounding Little Niagara in Sulphur, Oklahoma. It's like it's a small hike, and there is wildlife there. And y'all know Ward 2, we are densely populated. We have apartments, fourplexes, eightplexes beside bungalows, and I love it. I will never be anti-apartment. I will be anti the design of apartments that facilitate crime and not community. But this land to me feels a bit sacred. I'm sorry, that was my read of it. It's just my read of it. It's just my read of it. The rest of this body does not have to agree with me, but I walked this land with your councilman, who is in one of the toughest positions I've seen a councilman exist in. So I do not envy them, but I do applaud you for your stewardship and your guidance. Whatever decision he makes, please understand he's in a rock and a hard place. But I'm gonna have to bow out of this one. It's the land for me. I think we've taken up too much of our land to develop, and I just know that there are places in this urban core that we could be building along transit routes, the apartments, the multifamily, the multi-use developments that we need so desperately right now. And I'll just stop there. I'll have more to say later during comments from council. But again, kudos to the councilman, especially in an interim position. He's a true steward, but I can't do anything to this land. I'm so sorry.
So if I,
Go ahead. I've already talked once. I'm good.
There's already a current PUD. So building is going to take place regardless of what we decide up here. We're just determining in which direction to go and what's going to have concessions versus non-concessions.
Correct.
Am I clear to understand? I mean, like you're building one way or the other, and they can either get the concessions with us voting in this PUD, or it's going to be how it was already stated, but building is happening.
That's 100% correct. There's not a scenario where this becomes a nature preserve. It remains untouched. Somebody owns it. It's a zone currently for 522 apartments. If this is denied, that's what's going to get moved forward. And that doesn't have the height restrictions, the increased setbacks, the tree preservation areas, the open space requirements. All of that would go away if this is not approved.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Let me say to that developer who's got to be listening to this conversation right now, yes, there is an existing PUD. Yes, there is this proposal. That developer, in my imagination at least, has the responsibility of going back out there and walking that land again and thinking, when you go to the other Wildwood, just up the road, you will see homes built into the canyons. It complements, it is harmonious with the land, the land. And that's missing in both of these instances. So I understand that there is an approval which already exists. My challenge to this developer is to rethink the land. That's just really what it comes down to. So I hear what you're saying, and I know that's a tough position. You're right. I understand how you would get there, Councilman. I do. That's just my challenge. Rethink harmonious development here. And I just don't think either of these are doing that. And that's a shame.
I will remind the council, this was the borrow pit for the Belle Isle station. So the undulation, the holes in the ground, that is not the natural terrain. That is essentially a dirt mining operation that happened here, and newer growth that occurred. So it's not like we're taking away the ancient forest that's been there. It was a borrow pit to build a lake.
It now exists. I'm aware of that. And in fact, that's why I'm even speaking on this, is because I learned from Councilor Cooper that this area in so many ways diverted into Ward 2. Like where Belle Isle Station, where that Walmart, that Nordstrom rack, where once upon a time was an amusement park before we literally paved paradise to put up a parking lot there. And we borrowed from this land here. And I think that was wrong then. And now, though, for all these years that these folk have lived there, they have been able to walk that land over there, enjoy those trees that have grown out of our city government's mistakes. And it is a beautiful, I'm sorry, I think it's beautiful what you all got. And right across the street from it's about to be the Deep Fork Trail that is under construction that I can't wait to stop having to drive I-44 to go to Tinseltown from Paseo and to bike that trail to go to the Adventure District where there is trees all along that thing. So yes, Mark, you are correct. I love Mark, by the way. Mark's a friend. This is not an antagonistic thing. We do this all the time. But I just think on this one, friend, we're going to be on a different page.
Understood.
Anyone else? Any other council persons? Let me say a couple of things. I came into, of course, this position with this PUD that was presented. For that reason, we needed to delay this to try to work through some nuances as it related to particularly this piece of land. I know that this is a historic neighborhood, one of the best neighborhoods in Northeast Oklahoma City. And for that, I think it brings a wealth of appreciation. I lived in this neighborhood coming back to Oklahoma City. I lived on 63rd Street. I know this neighborhood well. I have relatives that live in this neighborhood. I have, of course, church members that live in this neighborhood. And then I've had the privilege of getting to know many of the residents that are here today and getting to know them in a real and personal way. Let me say, first of all, thank you to all of the council members who went out to look at this land, to walk this land, to come to grips with this land. And taking that time out of these council members to actually do that even when it was not in your ward, I want to say thank you for doing that. Thank you, Mark, for working tirelessly, trying to work with the developer to get this to a place where I would feel comfortable and others would feel comfortable with this particular PUD. And let me say this about the residents in this neighborhood, that they have passion, they have education, they educated themselves on PUDs. They knew nothing about PUDs going into this process. They have taken the time out to do that and to meet. They have met on a number of occasions in reference to this. It is a difficult decision to make, because even if this is denied today, it does not necessarily mean that you get what was previously in the design. It says, with the considerations and all of the things that have led to where we are today. I know that this land is going to be developed. They're quite aware that this land is going to be developed. The constraints of this providing additional housing which is something that is very much needed in Ward 7. And the difficulty of all of this decision, I really, in my heart of hearts, think that it's as good as it's going to get with the concessions that have been made. And because of that, I'm moving for adoption with all of the adjustments and considerations and TEs that are in place for this PUD.
Okay. And Councilman, does the master design, the amendment to the master design statement listed on the agenda, it incorporates everything in this, everything that's been agreed to?
That's
There's no-
correct. We
Yes.
resubmitted all of that to
Okay.
city staff.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so then, really, that's where you would probably like to start, is with adoption of that amendment?
Okay, with all of the amendments, will we adopt those amendments? That's the minimum lot size, that is everything related to that, right?
Mark, everything that's been agreed to is incorporated into this
That's
amendment?
correct. And specifically, I just want to note the tree plantings on 20-foot centers along the northern property line and the minimum open space of Track 2 being increased from 15% to 25% would be included.
The open space for track,
Yes.
Okay.
okay?
All right, so the first motion is for item 11A1, the amendment to the master design statement. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. And then that leaves us with item A2. This is the ordinance on final hearing as now amended by item 1. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now at item 11B. This is an ordinance on final hearing that was recommended for approval, rezoning 11403 East Britton Road from R1 and AE2 to SPUD 1688 and AE2. Councilman Lee Cooper Noen has signed up to speak.
Are there any comments from council? Move for adoption.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 11C is an ordinance on final hearing that was recommended for approval, rezoning 2421 South Portland from C3 and AE2 to SPUD 1690 and AE2. Councilwoman Peck Noen has signed up to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. There was no protest at Planning Commission, and there were some technical evaluations that have been adopted. So with all of that, I'll move for approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 11D is an ordinance on final hearing that was recommended for approval, rezoning 501 Northwest 87th from R1 to SPUD 1692. Councilman James Cooper, no one has signed up to speak.
Thank you, Mayor David Holt. Do we have the applicant's representative present? We do. Hi.
Good morning, David Box, 525 Northwest 11th Street, here on behalf of the applicant. This is an SPUD that would allow for 2 duplex structures with 4 total dwelling units. No protests, no technical evaluations.
Okay. And this is true for the next item too. It's in the same area?
In fact, if you blink and open your eyes, you're going to see that little box move to the left. And I'm going to say the exact same thing I just told you on this one.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
But I'm happy to do it again if you'd like.
Well, we won't do that to you because it's the same thing, but I would move for approval.
We have a motion, second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Okay, item E is an ordinance on final hearing that was recommended for approval, rezoning 625 Northwest 87th from R1 to SPD 1693. Back to you, Councilman James Cooper. No one has signed up to speak.
You know, you're already at the podium though, it's to be fair.
Yeah.
And you need to get some steps backwards, got some steps in, so your exercise.
David Box, 525 Northwest 11th Street. Same developer. We are just now on Chartel instead of Walker. Same provisions in the SPUD. Again, no TEs.
Okay. And with that, I would move for approval.
have a motion and a second. Cast your votes.
Thank you.
Passes unanimously. Item F is an ordinance on final hearing establishing reserved parking for the physically disabled on the east side of Broadway near Northwest 13th. Councilwoman Hammond is absent, but it is just a traffic issue, so probably something we could take up. Go ahead.
Hi, Your Honor. Spoke with Councilwoman Hammond this morning. She asked me to move her zoning items, so we'll start with this one, please.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item G is an ordinance on final hearing establishing 45-degree angle parking near Broadway and 13th. We do have a couple people who have signed up to speak. Jonathan Dotson.
I'll also note on this one, Councilwoman Hammond requested, if we approve it, to move it with an emergency. So.
Okay.
Jonathan Dotson, 1012 North Hudson. And I think we were going to hope the previous request too was an emergency as well, approval. So is both.
We may have an issue with that. It's not listed on the agenda that was a possibility. And
For either of them?
Yeah, we generally would have that, we just don't do that for traffic usually. It's probably pretty rare. So unfortunately, I don't know that we have that option today because it just wasn't properly noticed as an option. I apologize, but that's just the way it is, I'm afraid.
I'm looking at law, so I don't know what I'm not magical. I don't know what I can do.
I will point out you could come back in 2 weeks, which would still be faster than the normal adoption of an ordinance, and then do the emergency.
Are you saying, I guess Kenny's not here right now, but
I know.
you're saying we cannot?
So
I didn't understand
you may not, right, it's a subtle thing, but every time on every ordinance, we always have emergency in parentheses, which serves notice that we might do that. We obviously usually don't, but it's always noticed. I guess that is not the practice on traffic cases. It's not written here, and I don't think it ever is, because that just doesn't ever come up. Nobody's in that much of a rush for a new parking spot, so it's not been noticed, unfortunately, that we might do that.
And you're saying without that notice, we cannot ask for an emergency?
That is my understanding. I wish Kenny were here, but that is my understanding. And there's a reason we put it on every agenda on all those items.
Why don't we, there's Kenny.
Okay, Kenny. Here's our dilemma. Traffic items traditionally do not list the option of an emergency, but the applicants and the council member making the motion would wish to do an emergency, but it is not listed as a possible option because it normally isn't, just because that's our custom, I guess. Is that preclude the possibility of us adopting an emergency today on these traffic items 11, F, and G?
I think it normally isn't because we usually don't adopt them with emergencies. So it's not on the agenda, so there's no notice on the agenda that it's going to be an emergency.
So we can't do an emergency?
Correct.
Okay. But if they wanted to come back in 2 weeks with an emergency adoption of the item, that would at least speed it up more than the 30-day.
You could adopt it today, and we could come back with an amendment with an emergency clause, or you could defer it for 2 weeks, and then we could redocket it as an emergency.
How urgent is this emergency issue?
We cannot get our design CA until this is truly effective, and it's 30 days past. So we'd rather take the 2-week deferral so we could still get the emergency in 2 weeks to still save us 2 than have it today and wait 30 days.
So you want it?
So defer the item.
And so your items you care about are F and G, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Can we defer those with one vote?
Yes.
Okay. Are you following all that, James? Oh, we did.
Then you have to vote to reconsider. Whoever voted for it can make a motion to reconsider the vote that approved F.
I motion.
This is a motion to reconsider F, and then we'll take a vote to defer it.
So, speaking with Councilor Hammond, which one would, because of what we just heard from Mark, which approach is going to get us moving quicker on this item? And that's the one we're going to do.
The deferral.
Okay. then
Seems counterintuitive, but deferring it is the faster approach.
okay, there we go. Then whatever steps we need to take, let me, now what do I do?
All right, so we're going to need a motion to reconsider item F.
Okay, then I'd like to make a motion, please, to reconsider item F.
So that is a vote in and of itself, correct, Kenny? Just the vote to actually reconsider it.
Correct, and you need a second.
Yeah, we need a motion and a second.
For your
So let's
consideration.
Bring that up here. All right, cast your votes to reconsider item F. Passes unanimously. So now we can defer item F.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to defer item F. Yes,
Maybe
Jonathan
G
Dotson.
as well? We can-
And we'll do
Yeah,
that
yeah,
too,
we can
yes.
do, and we can do those
Yes.
simultaneously, correct, Kenny?
We're gonna,
Do them together?
Yes.
One vote for.
we're gonna vote to defer F and G.
All right, till the next meeting in 2 weeks.
See you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Items F and G are deferred. And when they appear on the next agenda, you can just unilaterally put emergency in parentheses without any other action, right?
Yes.
We could always put that. Maybe we
Yes.
should. Okay.
And we'll just go ahead, we'll just go ahead and add a emergency clause to the ordinance, so it'll be docketed that way.
Okay. All right, now we are on item H. This is another traffic issue, establishing a reserve parking for the physically disabled on the north side of WP Bill Atkinson in Ward 8. Councilman Stonecipher.
Anyone sign up to speak?
No, they have not.
I'd move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Similarly, item I is an ordinance on final hearing establishing reserve parking for the physically disabled on the east side of Gamble's Trail Drive near Bill Atkinson. Councilman Stonecipher.
Yeah, I'd move to approve.
Have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Okay, now we're on item J. This is an ordinance on final hearing. This is the third meeting on this. It's the last time in the foreseeable future that there'll be 3 meetings on an ordinance change. This related, as you may recall, to adoption of our annual budget and capital improvement plan. We today can consider it. Quick sidebar, do we not typically have the emergency option on policy ordinance changes either?
No, unless we ask for
Okay, so if we had in this meeting decided, wait a second, this is really important, we've got to move fast on this, we wouldn't have that option.
Right.
I think we should probably just make this a little bit more of a default, that's always at least in parentheses. It doesn't seem like it harms anything to do that, so.
So it has to get added to the ordinance language. And then if we didn't approve the ordinance, then we'd have to remove it.
Okay, forget it then, never mind. I mean, we'll
discuss
talk
it.
about
We'll
this.
discuss it.
I've never had this come up as such a problem before.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, not relevant necessarily on this item. Item J, we got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. All right, item K1 is a public hearing regarding the dilapidated structures here listed. And we do have someone who has signed up to speak, Rita Cartwright.
I'm new at this, so I really don't know what I'm doing. The person that was supposed to come speak, she's ill, so it was our real estate lady, and she's been here several times for us. But they keep saying the building is abandoned, the 1300, the one that, it burnt down 2 years ago, over 2 years ago. And I guess they had a fire down there a couple of weeks ago or so. They keep saying it's abandoned. It's really not abandoned. I feel like it's vacant because we're trying to sell it, and you can't sell it as a salvage yard anymore because you can't pass on your license. to put a salvage yard in back down there. So we're in the process of selling it right now, and she said that she's working with Brownsfield Grant for Phase 1 testing, which already has been begun. It has begun, and the property is under contract. And she said, we ask that any action from the city which will cause our family more hardship, please be delayed. We've been trying to do whatever you guys ask us to do, but it's very expensive tearing it down. We do have a person looking at it right now, and he's having trouble right now with the electric company. We've had a permit before because we got the first building tore down, and he went to get a permit, and the electric company is giving him a holdup right now. So he's in the process of giving us a quote on demolition. So I don't know what else we can do. We're trying. I should say.
Okay, Chad Davidson, Code Enforcement Superintendent. This is kind of a cleanup more so than anything else. Originally, yes, we did notify the building nearest to the street, and they did remove that. But since that time, these other buildings and structures on this property have continued to deteriorate. And again, like you said, there was a fire a couple of weeks ago down there. But as far as it being declared abandoned, that came with that initial declaration of dilapidation, and that abandonment will stay with that property until you bring the property into compliance, and then you petition the city clerk to have it removed from that status.
Okay. I mean, I know you know everything we've done down there, and you can't keep the homeless out of there. We've tried everything. We put fences up. All they do is steal it and sell it. So, I mean, this is our next move, and it's very expensive, and that's where the holdup is.
I understand.
So,
Right.
I don't know.
Okay, thank you. We also have maybe Doris Cole
Who?
signed up.
There's one more person signed up to speak on these items.
Oh, do I?
You were.
Yeah, you're good.
You're good, thank you.
Oh.
Hi, my name is Doris Cole, 3240 Rain Tree Road. I'm the prospective buyer of the property at 1300 South Robinson. I plan on putting mixed use there, if possible, with retail and affordable housing. Right now, I'm in the phase 1 of the Brown Smith project, and I haven't heard back yet, but we did put it in time. So I'm asking for a little time before they declare it to be abandoned, so that we can get the results back from the Brown Smith project.
I think, to be clear, the properties are already been declared abandoned.
Okay.
And will remain in that status until the property's brought into compliance and the owner petitions the city clerk to be removed from that status.
Do we need to do that before we get the results back from the Brown Smith project?
That I don't know. That's between you and the Brown Smith project. But in order for it to be not declared abandoned, that's the process that we have. It has to be in compliance.
So what are the next steps right now from the city?
Repair or remove the structure is what we want the property owner to do. But for the city, it's declare or not declare the property. Are these other buildings dilapidated? If they are declared dilapidated, then we will solicit demolition bids. for the
Okay, and how
property.
long do they have?
Immediately 30 days to submit the bids.
Okay,
But this is, like she said, this has been going on for a couple of years. Mind you, it is directly across the street from one of our very newest parks in the city.
understand.
And it is a very dangerous place.
I understand. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Well, that concludes those who signed up to speak under the public hearing. Well, okay. Well, normally we'd ask you to sign one of these, but all right. Just come forward, state your name and address, please, and which property you want to speak.
My
My name's James Warden. It's the 3745 Northwest 11th.
Okay.
That was recently, last month, that I've had the cops out there because somebody moved into the house and they were told to get out. And this happened a week later. And 3 days, I believe, after that, I had the cops back out there again because the person that they talked to and told them to get out of the house stole the van and put it in the backyard and stole the engine and transmission out of it. And it's not abandoned. I just haven't been able to get over there and work on it as much. I've cleaned the yard up, and I'm without a vehicle right now, so it's hard to get material over there to fix it.
Understand. We'll just need to sit down and make a plan of action for you to bring it into compliance. Mr. Warner, you are the owner of the property?
It's in my brother's name, but it is my property.
Okay.
And when I've had the cops out there last month, they talked to my brother on the phone, and he told them that the property is mine.
Okay. Well, we'll talk out in the hall, and we'll get a plan of action together and work with you.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, that concludes those who signed up to speak. So we close the public hearing at K1 and move to the resolution found at K2 declaring that the structures are dilapidated. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 11L1 is a public hearing regarding the unsecured structures here listed, except for those previously struck. Amy, has anyone signed up to speak?
No, they haven't.
They have not, and so we will move to the resolution found at L2 declaring that the structures are unsecured. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item M1 is a public hearing regarding the abandoned buildings here listed, except for those previously struck. Amy, has anyone signed up to speak?
No, they haven't.
They have not, and so we will move to the resolution found at M2 declaring that the buildings are abandoned. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Councilman Stonecipher, have you voted? Passes unanimously. All right, 11N1 is a public hearing regarding a joint resolution with the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust approving allocations of $2.2 million and $1.6 million in the Classen Corridor. We had a presentation on this already. Has anyone signed up to speak into the public hearing, Amy?
No, they haven't.
They have not, so that brings us to the resolution found at N2, the joint resolution with the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust approving said allocations. This relates to the Palomar Parking Garage project in Midtown. If there's no comment or questions, we could adopt the resolution. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Okay, item 11O is a joint resolution with the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust approving a budget allocation not to exceed $3 million from the Classen Corridor Revitalization Project Plan. This is relative to the Gold Dome project, and we do have a presentation.
Yes, Kenny Soodle, CEO of the Alliance for Economic Development for Oklahoma City, will introduce the item and introduce our developer.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Kenny Soodle with the Alliance for Economic Development. Just very quickly, want to bring you this, give you a summary of what the economic development deal is on the Gold Dome project, and then Mike Brown with Kismet Concerts is going to give a presentation about the project. So just very quickly on this one, this would be a construction project, renovation and redevelopment project of over $10 million. What's being proposed here today would be a $3 million allocation that we would have to provide somewhat up front. It would come in after their funds come in on the deal, their equity and their lending. The funds would then, we would have to loan those from the GOLT funds because this is in the new Classen TIF where there are no funds currently. These funds would be repaid by a combination of things. There would be a $120,000 a year minimum tax payment put on this, so that over 25 years at a minimum, the property taxes would pay that back. However, there would also be a profit sharing agreement considered here that would provide over a certain revenue share, that there would be a split between the city and the developer. So both of those items would come back, and that split was proposed at what, is it 70-30, 60-40? I'm trying to remember. 60-40, city versus developer. So both of those things combined would go towards repaying the loan. With that, we'll bring up Mike Brown. So Mike, if you come forward, he's going to give you a presentation on what's being contemplated here, and then be happy to answer any questions after that. So again, this is the first step of the allocation. The things we've talked about today would have to be brought back, with your approval today, would have to be brought back in an economic development agreement. So Mike?
Thanks, Kenny. Thank you, guys. Good to see you, Mayor. The Gold Dome, you guys all know the property there that's been vacant for a little while. We looked at this in my past at one time back in 21, and we've brought it back to us with our new endeavor. You can just kind of scroll through these. These are some exterior renderings that are typical of what the building looks like today. As Kenny said, we had gone down the path when we started this with the National Park Service and the State Historic Preservation Office. And the image that you see here now, can you go back one, sorry, John, is there's a mezzanine in that building, and there is a wall there that was put up at some point when the building was built, and behind it originally it was for storage. Over the different uses and time of the building, those had been converted into different offices and suites and used for different things. When we sent this up through to the National Park Service, they felt that that wall was historically significant and would not approve our application for historic tax credits for this project. We then went through a grant program that was started with the Oklahoma Route 66 Fund, and we made 2 unsuccessful applications for that, and that program is to restore, save, and help significant iconic properties along Highway 66, Route 66 in the state of Oklahoma. After those, Kenny and his team, we've been working on this for some time. We got together, and this is where we've come up with this TIF opportunity to try to keep this building a part of Oklahoma City for the next 100 years, hopefully. And as you can go through these, Joanna, you can see the separate rings. Now, there was a piece that was shown there that you see on the left. It's an exterior piece that was originally first denied from the State Historic Preservation Office because it was too much blocking of the round building. So we pulled that out, and that would be something that we would look at bringing back in the phase 2 or even in the phase 1, depending on where we land with the project and costing out of things. But that would allow a walkable, usable, 7-day-a-week F&B opportunity outside of just what the venue would be. Go ahead, Joy. You can see that it would, these are some economic data as it relates to the live entertainment space that for every $100 ticket that's purchased in a market for a show, it'll impact about $350 per night. So, if you look at us, we would anticipate anywhere from 60 to 70,000 people here annually a year, and our ticket prices aren't going to probably average at 100, so somewhere between probably $40 and $65 would be your average ticket there, puddled in with, some local stuff that's in at a smaller number. Go ahead, Jen. The little bit of history on it, it opened in '58 as a bank. This is pretty much everything that we've covered, and you guys are well aware of the first Christian church that was demoed earlier in the morning one day, and then this dome is the next one I think is on the list of what are you going to do with it if we can't figure out this project. Those are kind of the economics on it. Acquisition from seller, construction costs, and we got to the construction costs where there was some significant construction data done when it was going to be a Natural Grocers, and we've gone through and we feel that our numbers are as close as we can get today. I do know that on some other projects that trying to get boiler parts right now are a little challenging in the winter, but we'll recost everything, but we think that we're really close to this number. Show you the attendee numbers there with the net proceeds coming out at the end of $1 million. And then as Kenny had mentioned, is there a slide on the rev share piece, or was that presented out? Okay. So you can see that this would be made available through that loan. And with these revenues, the expenses, debt service, the net proceeds, and then the back piece, that additional 40% of that $346,000 would then go back to repayment of that TIF outside of the ad valorem. And I'm not sure if you touched on that, Kenny, but there's also a piece of this where the ad valorem taxes are set at a minimum, I believe, of $120,000 a year, regardless of what the assessment comes in at on that project. I think that's all of it there.
All right, any questions for Mike? This has been a journey. It's really important, I think. I think of all the remaining buildings that are endangered in our city, this is top of the list, and really the catalyst for this TIF. This TIF obviously ultimately has greater application, and we just approved a project in Midtown a few minutes ago, but the catalyst for this TIF, at least its timing, was really how can we save the Gold Dome from demolition?
I'm curious what space this is going to fill that the Criterion, the Jones Assembly, and the Tower Theater don't already fill.
Sure. If you look at the ecosystem of any market with live entertainment, and as an analogy, we've all rented a car before. So you've got economy, mid-size, full-size, luxury, and you go on up through vans and passengers. So if you take just the scene as it is in Oklahoma City, you've got Beer City, which is a great little room that's a 250 capacity space that is a development band room, so it's kind of like your economy car. Then you come up and you have a kid or so, then you're going to go over to the Jones or to the Tower. So they're 1,200 at the at the Tower. I think that if Jones opens up their outdoor space, they push around 1,700 capacity. You step up, now you're going to get into a luxury car or a Suburban, you're going to go to the Criterion. Criterion's at 3,500. And then you would come to what the Dome is. We're going to hover somewhere between 25 and 3,000. At any given time, if you look at like Wichita, Kansas, where we operate, you've got a 4,000 cap arena there that's in Park City. You have a city-owned 1,200 capacity theater, a city-owned 2,200 capacity partial theater, an independent 1,800 capacity room, our property that's 1,800 capacity, a 3,000 capacity outdoor. So I think that there's in a city that's an NBA market like Oklahoma City, there's enough content, not only with what is local with private events and weddings and those types of things, but as far as a concert venue, there's enough in the ecosystem to support what's here.
And my second question, and I won't go into detail on why and how I know this, but there's issues with the parking lot surrounding that because it's owned by the bank or the bank that used to be there, and what are those hurdles that we're going to have to overcome to make that viable?
Sure. So the bank doesn't actually own anything. When Chase bought the bank and operated it, and then they built their other location to the east, and then they have a sign on the northeast corner of this lot also. So they have a deed restriction that eliminates your ability to develop or build on half of that site, which is cumbersome to what we would need to do there. We've had some conversations with them initially, and I think that they're open to working with us. I can't imagine why they wouldn't. I mean, in today's world, the reason that they did that was at the time there wasn't Waze and GPS maps and Google and all of these ways to find something. So they were thinking that if you're driving down 23rd Street going west to east, if somebody built something there, they would never find their new bank. Well, I think times have changed, and I think we can get around that.
If I could go back to Councilman Hinkle's first question, because I think it's really important and really interesting, because it made me really drill down on why we even do TIFs. And I realized that philosophically there's two different reasons that we often use. Sometimes we use them both, but sometimes we're thinking about one or the other. Sometimes it's purpose of the activity that's going to happen there, and sometimes it's about the building. And clearly this is one of the main tools. TIFs are one of the main tools we have utilized in this community to save privately owned buildings. So an example of the use was when we utilized a TIF to construct the Omni. Obviously, the building didn't even exist. All we cared about was we needed a convention center hotel. In contrast, when we used the TIF on the First National, if the developers had told us they wanted to fill it with a doggy daycare, we would have said, fine, like we don't care. We just want to save that building, and you're telling us, developer, that this is like what you think is the most viable business purpose. great. We just care that you're not going to tear this building down. And I think that's the case here. We did not set out in this endeavor to introduce another live music venue into the city. We set out to save the Gold Dome, and this is the only business plan in 5 to 10 years that has emerged. And there's been a lot of publicity about this project and this opportunity. Every developer in town knows that we were listening and that essentially we were probably going to make a financial offer to make whatever they proposed work. And this is it. This is the only thing that's come forward. So my hat's off to you for being that person who's willing to save this building, and to the current owners who preserved it for 10 years without any real, economic daily return on their investment. And so to me, I think it's interesting. We should certainly talk about it. But at the end of the day, to me, it's all about the building. And I can't tell you if it'll be a live music venue 10 years from now. That's not my concern. I do feel like the building will still be standing 10 years from now because of the conversation we're having today. And that's what matters to me.
So in your presentation, you talked about how every single other redevelopment we've done in this building has failed, right? What sets this one apart?
I'm sorry?
What sets this one apart?
Well, we think that if you look at what's been done there before, it's been office and restaurant and just kind of a buffet of different efforts with no real capitalization. We feel that we understand the market and that this venue will fill a void and a hole for what's here. We've operated in multiple markets and done adaptive historic reuse in the past, so we feel that this is a viable opportunity for us.
And Mr. Sudol, can you talk to us a little bit about when the payments would occur?
About what? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. So the $3 million coming out of the TIF, right? Is that after the $7 million is spent?
Yeah, so what we would contemplate, and these will all have to be brought back and memorialized in an economic development agreement, but what we've talked to Mr. Brown and as he's talking through his financing is we would want to put our funds in. We would want to ensure we had a budget and a development and construction contracts that covered the entire redevelopment. We would want to make sure our funds go in last after the bank and the equity and those sorts of things. We'll look at other types of personal guarantees and those sorts of things to provide security. And then in addition, having the minimum tax payment set at a minimum where over the life of the TIF it would recover our investment. But we're hoping, looking at the scenario of really what we modeled with him was 65 events a year, which if you think about it is about 5-ish or so a month, which didn't seem unreasonable. And if those things were only about 50 to 60% full, looking at what they net off of it, we felt like this is kind of that scenario of what it potentially would generate, and the revenue sharing off that would also go back towards that. So we're trying to ensure, as we always do when we put money in near the beginning of a project, that we have multiple avenues of protection for the city. But we wanted to be very clear, we would have, again, this TIF is new. This particular, if you'll recall, the Class and Corridor TIF has 4 different increment areas, and the actual Gold Dome is its own increment area. So this TIF is new. It doesn't have any funds in it, so that's why we would have to borrow those funds from the Gold program and then do the repayment, which is something we've done before in the past.
I have a few items. One, would you all walk us through the condition, the structural condition of the Gold Dome? Like, what condition is it in? And yeah, we'll start there.
My name is Troy Humphrey with Land Run Commercial Real Estate Advisors on behalf of the property ownership. Happy to answer any questions, but to your question, Counselor, the condition of the structure right now, structurally, is that the roof has just a few roof leaks. The ground floor is structurally sound, like most homes or most buildings you would find in Oklahoma City. If they have a basement, they take on a little bit of water. The largest pump I've ever seen is down in that basement, and that was installed many, many years ago. So I've always said that if there's a tornado in the area, that's where I would want to be, because there's no sign of hail damage on the roof. It's anodized aluminum. You got the safe there, the vault, so it's a very structurally sound building.
When we talk about what has, structurally, what have been the impediments to redevelopment?
Well, first, the roof itself is very unique. There's no other roof like it in the region that I'm aware of. So understanding how you're going to go about sealing that and working with that, and the different pitches and slope of the roof, when you think about the roof, the fire suppression system, the ceiling, a lot of people see it's actually a drop ceiling, a glorified drop ceiling that's suspended. Those are all concerns. Typically what I would not consider to be structural, which is a large cost in the renovation of this building, would be your mechanical, your air conditioning and heating and ventilation, your electrical, the plumbing, the fire suppression. Parking lot's going to need a little bit of patchwork as well. So all of those are conditions and things that would attribute to the cost that you're seeing in some of these numbers.
And so these are, if I'm understanding you correctly, and we've had this conversation in private a few times, these elements all combined to make it difficult to find someone to purchase the building. Is that correct?
Absolutely. As the mayor alluded to a minute ago, the property's been on the market for sale for nearly 10 years. In that time, there have been 3 buyers that have actually submitted an offer that want to keep the building. And 2 of those had it under contract and backed out because of cost. Here, Mr. Brown is ready to go tackle the project with the hope of having this economic development tool help bridge that cost or that gap. This tool did not exist in the prior 2 opportunities.
Yeah, okay. And if I might, I'd like to talk about that tool, because I do have some concerns, and then I'll share where I'm heading ultimately. But I'm glad you all mentioned First Christian. I literally, as you all might recall, when that happened, woke up to that demolition. Like, literally had to go teach that morning at 10 o'clock class, and at 9 o'clock got that news. That was a very painful day. Steve Lackmeyer with the Oklahoman reached out because immediately his concern was Gold Dome. Like, that was just, he was like, James, what are you going to do to save this building? Mayor reached out, your partner Jonathan reached out, and when I was on the phone with Lackmeyer, I was at First National Building, staring at the skirvin. So history was just all running through me at that time, and then I walked my bike from First National back to Paseo talking to Jonathan on the phone. Well, Mayor first and then Jonathan. So we were able then to bring you and Jonathan to City Council to meet with Finance, Economic Alliance, Planning, the City Manager's Office, in the council chambers. And you all told us at the start of that meeting that if we did not figure out a solution at that meeting, we would lose the Gold Dome. That was how the meeting began. I need everyone to know that. I've never felt a pressure like it before or since, quite frankly. And that's when you laid out these structural concerns. It's when you explained what the problems were to selling it to a developer. I would like to amend a little bit of the official record here so we're clear how the TIF came into existence at all, right? Which was OKC Talk broke the news a couple years ago, and was it 21 maybe, I think, that this was a possibility for the Gold Dome, this music venue. We had representatives from the Asian district right then reach out and say, hang on, pause, why? Like, they have wanted that building to, and I mean like the Asian District Board, I'm not talking about just people who live in the area. They wanted that building for an Asian District Cultural Center to honor Laotian to Vietnamese residents, right? A place, if you go to Lee's Sandwiches just up the road on Classen, you'll see folk out there playing games in community with each other. Many of them are aging, and a lot of the leaders in that district want a place for them to be able to go, and the Gold Dome is where they had their eyes. And so they reached out to Councilwoman Hammond and myself and said, if we're gonna create a TIF for this music venue, why can't we create one for the entirety of the Asian district in Classen? And that's how this TIF came into existence. So we're very, very clear that this TIF was born from the bottom up and from within the Asian community. That needs to be on the official record. Would you mind then explaining briefly what, and you did this too when we met here several months ago, would you mind explaining, because I love the idea of a cultural center, what is the, and give us the counter argument for why that was, and at least state why that was not, in your mind, financially viable for you.
Sure. So one of the things that when we talk to a countless number of nonprofits and charities, and they all have great work and they all serve a great purpose. I'm on some of them myself. The challenge with that is that we were looking for somebody that either had the cash on hand or immediate access to funds to acquire, renovate, and operate that building. That's a substantial amount of money. And every organization that we've spoken with could not answer yes to those things. We wanted to see if somebody was going to be able to produce their own income and be self-reliant. As we all know, nonprofits are not. They fundraise. And so trying to be a good steward of the building and use of public funds, those are the things that we were looking at, trying to make sure, okay, this is a viable, self-sustaining, long-term use for that building. That's why.
So my kind of concluding things here. One, when this comes, I don't know at which point in this process that the rendering that you all have shown of like the trees along 23rd Street and that landscaping, but what you were selling to us of what this is going to look like, I'd like that memorialized. Like, for so long, not only has that building set dilapidated, but there's like this disgusting chain link fence wrapped around that building right now. And for too long, people have stared at a parking lot and all of that. Is there some way to memorialize what you're proposing the exterior of this to look like? I don't know if it's at this phase, but I know you're coming back to council at some point to be talked about memorialization of things, but yeah. There's an image you put on this screen.
I think, too, that's more appropriate in the economic development agreement, right? As this is going to authorize the allocation of funds. This doesn't give anyone, direct access to the funds until we get an economic development agreement in place. That's where they're agreeing to certain things that they'll accomplish and certain things that we'll do or provide. This is our allocation and commitment of what we'll do with the funds, but it really isn't an agreement with anyone else at this point. It's just an allocation, a decision to allocate.
That's correct, and some of the things we mentioned here today are all input and things that we intend to bring forward in that agreement, but that would be the next step.
Joanna, would you mind just going to that slide briefly? Because another thing I think you all have an opportunity to memorialize at some point, thank you, right here, is, because there's a streetscape happening soon on 23rd Street, the Uptown Streetscape funded from Better Street, Safer City, the previous bond. I think something else, we talk about parking, but I think for the tourists who are coming to town and staying, for instance, at First National, Skirvin, wherever they're staying, we have got to let them know about the bus rapid transit service that's in existence, also funded by the bond, just like the streetscape that's coming to Uptown. But to mitigate some of the parking concerns, you could have someone, it could be on your website, it could be in your promotional materials, but letting them know that access, and that's the key word, access to this venue, right? That the BRT can get them there, right? And then on your other slide where you had, but please, keep this one please, but on your other slide, you had the economic tentacles to retail, right? If someone's coming to this space for a show, you said retail might be where they're spending money. You said restaurants and bars might be where they're spending money, right? I think that in your promotional, in your website, it's important to let people know that this entire corridor of Classen and 23rd is where that retail is, where that restaurant, it's where Tower, it's where Formosa, it's where, Honey Biscuit, it's got all this stuff. And I think that this needs to be a symbiotic relationship. This has got to be a collaboration very similar to the way that the French Quarter operates, where you have bars with restaurants and music venues that are not in competition with each other, but actually feed into one another. I think the BRT would be an ask here that for me to let people know that this is going to be a walkable corridor with public transportation.
Is there an entertainment district in that area at all that's been set up? Or is there one in the city anywhere?
I mean, we don't have an official designation. People get confused by this of a entertainment district. What we have are our commercial corridor districts like Uptown, Asian District, Paseo, Midtown, Stockyards. Right. And so, yeah, you are about to become a steward of a property that is historic in one of those revitalizing districts.
Well, we certainly hope so.
If the council approves it. So, but the BRT is my ask, that's something that you all talk about. This parking, it's, if you're going to have the numbers you're talking about, at some point you got to get people there with transit.
Yeah, we think with parking, the surface parks there, I think that there's, do you know the exact number?
I do not.
There's about 75 or 100, and then we've got that parking deck to the south that's part of that, the building that was the original offices here. And then other surface lots. We believe that from what we do in other markets, with the advent of Uber, Lyft, public transportation, people are smarter than, I'd say, my generation when they want to go out and do things. They take those opportunities to not drive. So it's lessened our parking revenues as well as our load in the local markets. And we've seen that when a venue like this opens, the majority of the surface lots in the area are owned by businesses that close before 5 or 6 p.m., and they get really smart and they monetize them. So it opens up privately operated parking into the neighborhood.
Yes, this is true. It's that neighborhood part I'm concerned about. We have to be, as we move forward, city manager, what I am requesting at the different moments is that there needs to be something about the BRT, because when we have Thunder games, as you all know, we are very intentional, Embark is, about marketing saying, take the BRT the night of these Thunder games, and people take them. Like, they take them from Portland, Meridian, and I think if you're gonna have the numbers you're saying, we need to make sure that we're mentioning the BRT as the access to this district, to this venue. If you don't, you're gonna have some upset neighbors in Mesta Park and in Paseo, trust me.
Yeah, so to your point a little bit, the same ownership group with this property also owns the Rise at 23rd and Walker. Mm-hmm. And though I haven't counted, I'm assuming the parks at the Rise are more than anything in that Uptown 23rd Corridor district. So we would love for people to park at the Rise, go eat dinner at whatever restaurants are there, and then walk down the street to the Dome. And secondly, one of the nonprofits I mentioned that I work on is the Uptown 23rd Business Improvement District. And so he and I haven't chatted about it yet, but there actually will be a time where I'm hitting him up to be a member of that association so that we can communicate more effectively about how to utilize and incorporate his operations there to benefit the district as a whole. So absolutely.
And what Troy just said, and what we see, for example, in specifically Wichita, there are 6 or 7 restaurants within walking distance of this venue. And the idea is, and what we've noticed is that we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone when it comes to parking load in that area, because they're coming to XYZ restaurant and they're eating, and then they're staying there, and then they're walking to the venue. So the restaurant's parking is getting used as it normally would anyway, and then we're just an ancillary piece, and the car stays there a little longer than it would have. So the extra infill to the restaurants in the market help us with the parking as well, because a lot of them do have surface parking.
Okay. I'm going to conclude just a couple more things right here. One, I just saw our Embark director, Jesse Rush, walk in. I would love for you all to go ahead and start these conversations about, he knows he's been doing this Thunder stuff, right? So I think this is a moment for you all to collaborate, to begin that collaboration, just as Troy, you're already talking about that collaboration. But again, what's coming is a walkable corridor here on 23rd. Hopefully in the Bond, another walkable corridor with the streetscape on the Asian District. So this whole thing can be the symbiotic relationship you're talking about. my final thing is I'm with the mayor on this one. I do wish your music venue well.
Thank you.
I do. I am a skeptic by nature, and so I don't know that I can tell you that you're going to be successful, but I also don't have a crystal ball. My priority is preserving this building. So I know there are some people who might be a little mad at me going, why would you subsidize a music venue? I need you to understand, if that is where you're thinking right now about me in this moment, that the day the First Christian Church came down as the person representing that ward is one of the most painful days of my entire existence as the steward of Ward 2. Hearts broke all across that ward that day.
I exited off at 235 yesterday and drove down 36, and I had been in that building extensively.
Yeah, so for me, this building, and I take Jonathan and Troy at their concern that if we don't get this right, we will lose this building. I can't risk that. So is this the venue, no offense, sir, that I would have perfectly chosen? No. But we've torn down too many of our buildings for decades, and so I'm happy to say yes to preserving this. Jesse, meet your new collaborators.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right. Oh, sorry, we do have a resident who signed up to speak. So James Scheel.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. I'd like to reach out and say thank you to Mr. Stone and Mr. Cooper for talking with me and clarifying a little bit of what was happening with what this is, and not to beat the dead horse that we've gone over many times with the parking and everything else. I've been in the music industry, arts, entertainment, music, owned 2 venues in this city. I've been involved for close to 20 years in this. Oklahoma City is a low C market. We see that with the loss that we had after COVID with the venues and everything else. So it's a tough industry. I wish the best with that. But my concern with this is, with Kismet, is their ties to Oklahoma City. They have no ties to Oklahoma City. He sat right here and stated, where's our music district? We don't have a music district. We've been trying to build it, but unfortunately, the promoters and everybody that's here don't want to work together. So they've built that level of inequality, I guess, if you want to call it that. But I'm also understanding, after talking to Mr. Cooper and Mr. Stone, that this is your last offer to save the Gold Dome. I'm all about that. We need to stay behind that and everything else. It's my idea for a venue. This is a venue? No, I don't think so. Acoustically, as a sound engineer, I don't think it's going to work out as well. It's going to be a nightmare for them. But the biggest problem that I'm concerned with this is what he represented to the $100 tickets, things like that. Oklahoma City is not going to pay that. They don't support that and everything else. But where that comes from is the fact that they are, Kismet and everybody else, is working with Ticketmaster and Live Nation. There are now 40 states, including Oklahoma, that have a civil suit against, antitrust lawsuit against Live Nation, Ticketmaster, exclusively conduct, dominance across the live concert ecosystem, harms fans, innovative artists, and venues. By being part of that, if they're not part of that system, they don't get booked.
30 seconds remaining.
Brought it up that Jones Assembly, Beer City, all that other stuff are part of that. Paycom talked about that. That explains a lot, the fees and everything that they do with that. I don't think that's going to work, and I don't think that's going to be successful for a venue in that. It's going to put more burden on it. But I'm all about saving the venue. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our residents who signed up to speak. If there's no other comments or questions, we could consider a motion. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes 7-1. Next up is item P. This is, I should probably pause and say, I know it always feels anticlimactic. Good luck, Mike. We're excited to work with you. Item P is a resolution authorizing the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust to incur indebtedness by the issuance of one or more series of its drinking water state revolving fund promissory notes to the Oklahoma Water Resources Board in the amount of $2.5 million. There's a presentation on this?
Yes, Chris Browning, our Utilities Director, will present this request for this authorization for debt.
Good morning. A number of years ago, the EPA mandated a lead service line replacement mandate for all utilities across the U.S. The large utilities were given till October of 24 to identify the possible sites and to notify those owners accordingly. So we performed a records evaluation, and out of our 254,000 service locations, we have identified the potential for 37,000 private service lines being led. That's from the meter to the building, and about 12,000 public service lines being led, and that's from the water main to the meter. So rather than just stop there, we approached the Oklahoma Water Resources Board and asked them for funding to actually field verify our thoughts about where these lead service lines may be. So we did phase one. We were authorized funding by the OWRB. We were able to hire a contractor and actually physically dig down and verify the material at 4,250 sites. We completed that last year, and now we want to do another 5,000 sites. This is phase two. So we were awarded by the Oklahoma Water Resources Board last week at their meeting $2.5 million for this work. And the good thing is 1.25 of that is loan forgiveness, and the other 1.25 is 0% interest. So we're getting free money here. So it's a good deal. And so with your approval, we'll move forward with this project. And so we recommend approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Chris, did we, of those 4,250 that have already been investigated, did we determine any of those were not lead from that investigation?
So the first round, we only found 173.
That had lead or that did not have lead?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome.
Were lead.
Okay.
Not very many.
Nope.
And so subsequent to this, we'll need to develop a replacement program. That's the next step mandated to the large utilities to do it. Right now, under current law, it's within 10 years. I don't know where the new law is going to go here shortly, but we don't have very many that we have to deal with these 4,250, and hopefully the 5,000, many of them have already been replaced over time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, so we could take a motion on this resolution. I'd point out that it requires 6 affirmative votes. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously and with the necessary 6 affirmative votes. Q1 is a resolution authorizing the municipal councilor to confess judgment without admitting liability in the case of McLean Hobbs v. City of OKC. Staff is not requesting executive session. Motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item R1 is a resolution authorizing the municipal councilor to confess judgment in the case of Scott v. City of OKC. Executive session is not requested. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item S is a joint resolution with the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority approving settlement of the subrogation claim pertaining to Robert Daly. Executive session is not requested. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item T is an executive session regarding the case of Simmons, et cetera, v. OKC. Simmons v. City of Edmond, et cetera, and OKC. And we will vote on that and then handle that executive session at the end of our other business. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item U is an executive session on Lamar v. OKC, and likewise, we will vote on that and then handle the executive session at the end of our other business. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Okay, item V are claims recommended for approval. Executive session is not requested. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously, and that's our final vote of the day. Item 12 are comments from council. Ward 1.
I just want to give a shout out to our water utilities department. We've had a lot of water main breaks and things that have gone on over the last week and weekend, and they have worked tirelessly overnight on weekends to get everything restored and keep us moving in the directions that we go. And I just wanted to say thank you. I know they get a lot of grief and not so many thanks, but without them, we wouldn't be where we are and being able to do what we do. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Ward 3. Ward 4. Ward 5. Ward 7. Ward 8.
Speaking of that, the city of Oklahoma City is sending out a warning to the press and to the public about a utility scam that's going on. Let me remind everybody, if you get a phone call, do not give them any payment information and call the city's utilities departments to report the call. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no citizens to be heard, so we will now adjourn into executive session. You know, one could probably adjourn without 5, but it's just cleaner this way. For one more. We've concluded executive session, and that is the end of our business. We are at adjournment, and we are adjourned.